Justice doesn't knock politely on the door, my friend. No, when the time is right, justice kicks it wide open. Let that image sink deep into your spirit for a moment. Because while some people may have believed they could harm you, betray you, or walk away untouched, the universe, God himself, has been watching. Nothing has gone unseen. Every whisper in the dark, every trap laid in secret, every false word spoken against you was being recorded by a higher court. Evidence has been gathered, and when the appointed time arrives, justice does not hesitate, it strikes. And here's the truth. Chosen one, you are not alone in this fight. You never were. Even when it felt like you were surrounded, even when the betrayal was heavy and the weight seemed unbearable, there was a greater force working behind the scenes. The universe was not ignoring you. It was building a case, preparing a reversal, setting the stage for a justice so clear, so undeniable, that no one will be able to question it. Think about it like this. When someone builds walls to trap you, they often forget that those walls can close in on themselves. The very cage they designed to hold you becomes the prison that holds them. That is the nature of divine justice. Swift, poetic, and yes, merciless against corruption and deceit. Now let me ask you this. How many times have you wondered, why are they getting away with it? Why does it feel like nothing happens to them? I know you've asked that question because I've asked it too, but here's the revelation. You don't need to chase revenge. You don't need to prove your innocence, and you don't need to fight fire with fire. The collapse of your enemies becomes the proof. Their downfall becomes the evidence. While you rise, they crumble. This is not about human revenge. This is not about you picking up the sword to strike back. This is bigger than courtrooms, bigger than lawyers, bigger than anything this world can arrange. This is cosmic justice, justice ordained by the Creator himself. And when that script flips, even Hollywood couldn't write a story so perfect. So hear me, chosen one. No weapon formed against you prospers for long. Every plan, every scheme, every word meant to harm you is turning into fuel for your elevation. And today I want you to do something simple but powerful. If you feel this truth deep in your spirit, drop the number 777 inches the comments right now. Because that number is not just a comment, it's a declaration. It says, I believe justice is coming. I believe my story is not over. I believe the light wins. And if this message resonates, hit that like button and subscribe. Not because of me, but because every time you do this word of encouragement, this prophetic confirmation reaches another soul who needs it. Together, we're not just listening, we're spreading light across the world. So lean in, because this isn't just another video. This is confirmation. Justice is moving. The tables are turning. And you, chosen one, are about to witness the greatest reversal of your life. Chosen one. Let's talk about one of the greatest truths of life. The universe has a way of flipping the script in ways no one can predict. Your enemies may think they've gotten away with everything. They've whispered in dark corners, plotted behind closed doors, and convinced themselves that their schemes were invisible. But here's what they forgot. Arrogance always leaves crumbs. Pride always leaves a trail. And sooner or later, those crumbs lead straight back to the feast of their own guilt. Statistics even back this up. Did you know that over 90% of the time, people who believe they've covered their tracks are eventually undone by their own arrogance? Think about that for a moment. It's not the cleverness of investigators. It's not always the brilliance of those around them. It's their own pride that brings them down. They brag, they slip, they tell one too many stories, they trust the wrong person, they get comfortable, and that comfort becomes the rope that ties them up. Let me give you a picture to hold on to. Imagine someone setting fire to a house. They're laughing, convinced they've destroyed something valuable. But then they realize too late they locked themselves inside before striking the match. That's exactly what arrogance does. It blinds a person to the consequences of their own actions. What they thought was a victory becomes their prison. What they thought was control became chaos. And here's the part you need to remember. You don't have to chase them down. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't even need to lift a finger for revenge. The universe has a far better way of balancing the scales than you ever could. Their own actions will testify against them louder than any words you could speak. Their own downfall becomes the evidence that justice is alive and well. So let me ask you this: how many nights have you lost sleep, wondering if they would ever face the truth? How many times have you asked yourself if they really escaped? The answer is no, they didn't escape. They only delayed the inevitable. And the longer justice waits, the louder it strikes when it arrives. That's why you can breathe today. That's why you can rest. Because while they thought they were hunting you, they were really writing the warrant for their own arrest. Their collapse isn't just karma, it's cosmic justice. It's proof that no weapon formed against you prospers for long. So stand firm, chosen one. Keep moving forward, because while you rise, they're crumbling under the weight of their own arrogance. Chosen one, let me tell you something powerful. They tried to erase you. They thought they could drag your name through the dirt, delete your reputation, like hitting the trash button on a computer, and watch you vanish. But here's the truth. They never expected you are not a file. You are fired. And fire doesn't disappear just because someone wishes it gone. Fire spreads. Fire ignites. Fire lingers long after the flames seem to die down. Think about it. A masterpiece painting crafted with layers of color, detail, and meaning is attacked by a vandal with a splash of paint. At first it looks ruined, but when the restoration comes, the masterpiece doesn't lose its value. It gains it. The attempted destruction only highlights the depth, the strength, and the brilliance of the original. That's you. Their smear campaigns, their lies, their whispers weren't evidence of your weakness. They became the backdrop that revealed your true resilience, your true beauty. Why would they fight so hard to erase you? Because you carry something they could never copy. Something not man-made, not bought, not fake. You carry essence, a divine imprint, an authenticity that terrifies those who live behind masks. That's why their envy grew into obsession. They didn't come against you because you were irrelevant. They came against you because your very existence shouted a truth they couldn't silence. And when weak people realize they can't control you, they reach for the only weapon they think they have left: your name. They try to assassinate characters because they couldn't cage your destiny. They slander, they twist, they invent false stories. But here's the irony. Every time they spoke against you, they revealed more about themselves than about you. Their lies became their confessions. Their obsession became the evidence of your importance. Think about it. Why waste so much energy trying to erase someone who doesn't matter? Why stay up at night scheming against someone you claim is irrelevant? That's why you're still here. That's why you're still rising. Every false accusation was just another crack in their mask. Every attempt to bury you only uncovered the depth of their own corruption. And while they sharpened their knives on your back, the blade dulled itself, not you. You became proof that when someone tries to cut water, the water doesn't break, the blade does. So listen closely. Chosen one, you were never written in pencil. You were carved in permanence, sealed by destiny itself. They couldn't delete you because you were never fragile to begin with. They couldn't erase you because you are fire, unstoppable, undeniable, uncontainable. And the more they tried, the more obvious it became that their battle was never with you. Their real fight was against their own weakness, their own envy, their own inability to kill the truth that lives inside of you. So take heart. You don't need to prove anything. Your very survival, your very glow, your very presence is the testimony. They thought they were silencing your story, but all they did was publish their own downfall. And today your fire still burns while their lies turn to ashes. Chosen one, I want you to see something clearly. You weren't just another person passing through their lives. You were the test. You were the mirror. You were the divine checkpoint placed in their path to reveal who they truly were underneath all the masks. And when that light hit them, when your authenticity stood in front of their pretense, they had a choice. They could have chosen truth, humility, and growth. But instead they chose treason against their own souls. Think of it like this. A teacher places a simple test in front of a student. The answers are already inside the student. The test is not meant to destroy them. but to reveal what they've learned. But instead of picking up the pen, that student panics, rips the test apart and storms out of the room. They think they've escaped judgment, but in reality their very action becomes the evidence that they weren't ready. That's exactly what your enemies did. They didn't just fail, they exposed themselves. Your very presence was enough to make the lies sweat. You didn't have to argue. You didn't have to defend yourself. Just by standing tall, unshaken, you became the light that made their shadows visible. And when that happened, they couldn't take it. They retaliated, they schemed, they turned their test into a crime scene. Let me ask you, have you ever noticed how some people can't stand being around truth? It's not because the truth hurts them physically. It's because it reveals what they've been trying so hard to hide. That's why they came against you. You weren't their problem, you were their mirror, and when they looked into that mirror, they didn't like what they saw. Envy, bitterness, cruelty, pride. Instead of letting the mirror change them, they tried to smash it. But here's the irony. In trying to destroy you, they only documented themselves. Every lie they told, every false accusation, every act of betrayal. It wasn't just an attack, it was a confession. Their actions became the evidence. Their obsession with bringing you down became proof of their own emptiness. And what happens when someone fails a test this badly? Consequences? The universe doesn't hand out free passes when treason is chosen over transformation. Their alliances start to crumble. Their carefully crafted stories unravel. Their false power slips through their fingers. The very ground they thought was solid becomes quicksand, pulling them under. Chosen one, this is why you're still standing. Because the test was never meant to destroy you, it was meant to expose them. You didn't fail. You revealed. You showed the truth simply by existing. And in doing so, you became the evidence the universe needed. That's why they can't escape judgment now. The sentence is already written, and it was written by their own hands. So hold your head high. You were not sent to be erased, you were sent to reveal. And though they failed, you passed. You're still here, stronger than ever, and their collapse is the proof. Chosen one. Listen carefully, there's a law that cannot be broken no matter how much pride or power someone thinks they have. It's the law of balance. Every time someone tries to bend it, twist it, or rewrite it to their advantage, they end up breaking themselves in the process. That's exactly what your enemies did. They thought they could rewrite the script. They thought manipulation, lies, and schemes could replace divine order. But you can't cheat the universe. You can't bribe balance. You can't bully destiny. Picture this with me. Imagine someone building a dam to stop a mighty river. At first it looks successful. The water is quiet. The flow seems controlled. But behind that wall, pressure is building. Cracks start to form. And when that dam finally bursts, it doesn't just trickle. It wipes out everything in its path, including the very one who thought they could control it. That's what arrogance does. That's what corruption does. For a while it looks powerful, for a while it looks untouchable. But the collapse is always in motion. History proves this over and over again. Think of the Roman Empire, built on conquest and cruelty, collapsing under the weight of its own corruption. Think of brutal regimes that ruled with an iron fist, only to crumble because they violated the laws of balance. Even in modern times, corporations, leaders, and entire systems that tried to cheat their way to the top eventually fell apart, not because of outside enemies, but because they were rotting from the inside. Your enemies thought they were strategizing, but what they were really doing was signing their own sentences. They called it control, but it was chaos. They called it cleverness, but it was suicide. They thought they could cage you, hold you back, silence your voice, but all they managed to do was weave a net that trapped themselves. And here's the beautiful part, you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to fight their lies with lies. You didn't have to manipulate your way out of their traps. The laws of balance did the work for you. They couldn't stop your rise, but now they're crushed under the weight of their own fall. Every seed of deceit they planted has grown into a harvest they cannot escape. Chosen one, remember, this power built on lies is never permanent. Influence built on corruption cannot last. It might shine for a season, but it always burns out with interest. And while their structures crumble, you're still standing. Because your foundation was never built on deception, it was built on truth. That's why you're rising higher while they collapse. That's why balance is always in your favor. So don't worry when you see people seemingly winning through crooked ways. Their victory is an illusion. Their end is already written. And when the universe finally collects the bill, it doesn't just take, it takes with interest. Chosen one, when your enemies realized they couldn't take your life, they set their sights on something even deeper. They went after your mission. They knew your heartbeat carried purpose, so they tried to assassinate your destiny by attacking your influence, your reputation, your voice. They whispered behind closed doors. They spread slander like poison in the air. They pretended to be victims in public, wearing fake tears and false humility, while in secret they were plotting to silence you. But here's the irony they never saw coming. Every attempt to bury your mission only made it louder. Every whisper turned into a megaphone. Every slander became a spotlight. Every trap they dug became a stage where the truth stood taller than before. Let me paint this picture for you. Imagine a snake that can't strike with its fangs anymore. What does it do? It slithers toward the nest, hoping to destroy what's being built. That's what your enemies tried. They couldn't touch your life directly, so they aimed for your future, your hope, your destiny. They thought if they could isolate you, drain your support, and taint your name, your purpose would crumble. But destiny doesn't crumble under pressure. It multiplies. Purpose isn't fragile. It grows stronger under attack. That's why you're still here, and that's why your mission is louder than ever. History proves this truth. Every time someone tries to bury the truth, it rises with more force. Think about the Salem accusers who spread lies, or the witch hunts that sought to silence voices. At first their lies ran fast, but in the end, truth crushed them. The same principle is working in your story right now. And here's a question for you. If your mission wasn't powerful, why would they spend so much energy trying to kill it? Why would they work overtime, staging lies if what you carried didn't scare them? The level of their attack is the proof of your importance. The louder they tried to scream over your voice, the more obvious it became that your voice carried weight. Chosen one, let this encourage you. They didn't stop your destiny. They branded it into history. They made their war against you so obvious that now the whole world can see the contrast. Their schemes became your testimony. Their lies became the background music to your rise, and now their downfall is the confirmation of your calling. So don't shrink back. Don't question whether your mission still matters. The very attacks against it prove how unstoppable it really island. You were chosen for something greater than their whispers, and today, your mission speaks louder than ever, not because of their silence, but because of their noise. Chosen one, let me give you a truth that will set your mind at ease. You don't have to chase every lie spoken against you. You don't have to defend yourself against every whisper, because the same mouths that lied, the same hands that schemed, the same arrogance that mocked you, are weaving their own noose one thread at a time. Every word, every act, every false step has been building a rope that will only tighten around them. Think about this. A liar rarely stays silent. Pride demands to be heard. Arrogance loves to brag. And in that bragging, in that carelessness, they leave evidence behind. Investigators often say criminals are caught, not because they're brilliant detectives, but because the guilty simply can't resist talking too much. They expose themselves. That's exactly what's happening here. While you stayed quiet, they dug deeper. While you stayed still, they tightened the rope. Now here's the part you must understand. Patience is not weakness. Patience is strategy. The universe, God himself, often allows people to walk a little longer in their arrogance, not because he approves, but because he's letting them gather the rope with their own hands. They think silence means safety, but silence is just the sound of evidence being collected. And when the bill finally comes due, there is no escape. Imagine a thief who's been stealing for years without being caught. He begins to believe he's invincible. He gets sloppy. He brags. And then, one day, he pockets something. While the cameras are rolling, And that single act brings down the entire house of cards. That's your enemy, Chosen One. They thought they were untouchable, but the longer they boasted, the more careless they became until their downfall became inevitable. Have you ever noticed how lies don't age well? They start to contradict themselves. People forget the details. The story changes from one version to another, and slowly the mask slips. That's why you don't have to shout back at every accusation. The truth doesn't rush, it waits, and when it arrives, it doesn't need an introduction. It speaks louder than every rumor combined. So, take comfort in this. Every scheme, every betrayal, every false word spoken against you has been turned into evidence. They weren't getting away with anything. They were simply being given enough time to hang themselves with their own rope. And now the patience of the universe has run out. The sentence is here. The collapse is unfolding. Chosen One, rest in this truth. Their downfall is not your doing, it's their own. They wrote their own ending with arrogance, and now they must live in the story they created. Chosen One, let me share a truth that many people overlook. Sometimes silence is louder than any argument, any defense, or any counterattack. While your enemies screamed twisted stories and tried to drown you in noise, you stood still. You chose restraint. And that decision became the very weapon that exposed their lies. You see, liars depend on noise. They thrive in chaos. They count on you reacting, shouting, or defending yourself because your reaction gives their lies oxygen. But when you refused to play their game, when you didn't drop down to their level, their words began to collapse under their own weight. Your calm became their undoing. Think about a courtroom for a moment. Imagine everyone shouting at once, lawyers arguing, witnesses exaggerating, the room filled with confusion. But then, a single piece of video evidence is played. The room goes silent, the noise stops. The evidence speaks louder than any argument. That's exactly what your silence did. It forced the lies to crumble when the truth finally surfaced. Psychologists have studied this over and over. Lies are hard to maintain. People forget details, contradict themselves, and expose their own fraud the longer they try to keep the story alive. That's why you didn't need to fight. Time was fighting for you. Truth was gathering strength in the background, waiting for the perfect moment to speak. And when it did, it drowned out every rumor in a single breath. Maybe you've wondered, but why didn't I feel defended when I stayed quiet? Why did it feel like their voices were louder than mine? Let me tell you, justice takes time to ripen. Lies travel fast, but they rot quickly. Truth walks slowly, but when it arrives, it stands forever. Your patience wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It allowed the universe to build an unshakable case that no one could deny. And here's the irony: while they shouted to convince the world began to ask questions. Why hasn't this person fought back? Why haven't they broken down? Why does their peace look stronger than all this drama? In those questions, their lies unraveled. Your silence painted a clearer picture than their noise ever could. So, Chosen One, hold this close to your heart. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need to scream. You didn't need to prove anything. Your very presence, your steady endurance, your refusal to bend, those became the testimony. And now the same lies that were meant to bury you are choking the very ones who spoke them. Your silence was never a weakness. It was the loudest evidence of all. Chosen One, there's a truth I want you to take deep into your spirit. Nothing is ever truly hidden, not the whispered deals in the dead of night, not the secret messages deleted at dawn, not the backroom handshakes sealed with a smile. The universe records what the world thinks it can erase. Call it divine surveillance, call it cosmic memory. The point is the same: every move, every word, every tiny fingerprint leaves a trace that cannot be wiped clean. Imagine for a moment a room where someone believes they're alone. They lean across a table, they swear a vow in the dark, they laugh about what they've gotten away with. To them it's private. To the universe it's a vivid scene archived forever. Think of it like an invisible camera that doesn't blink. It sees the secret, remembers the tone, and holds the moment in quiet custody until the appointed hour. That's not paranoia, that's perspective. It's the reminder that what is done in darkness will be brought to light. Why does this matter to you? Because while they thought silence meant safety, silence was only the sound of evidence being collected. The universe doesn't rush its reveals. It lets actions stack up like pages in a file. It lets alliances harden, contracts get signed, lies get repeated, and all of it becomes part of the record. When the time is right, those pages are opened, and what was hidden becomes undeniable. You've seen it in real life, not just in stories. Powerful people have fallen because confidants flipped, because a hard drive was found, because a recorded conversation surfaced. Allies who once nodded in agreement suddenly turned and testified. Devices were seized, messages recovered, patterns exposed. The house of cards collapsed, not because of luck, but because the evidence had been building for a long time. The universe was patient. The world was loud. Now the quiet proof speaks. Ask yourself who among them feels safest. Now who smiles knowing there's a file somewhere that can't be deleted. That smile will fade. Because when the curtain lifts, there are consequences, legal, social, spiritual. People who counted on shadow protection find their support withdrawn. The very networks they relied on start to crumble because the truth forces people to choose stay with the lie or stand with reality. Here's something I want you to hold. You don't have to be a detective. You don't have to chase down every lead or expose every secret. Your job is to remain faithful, to keep your heart clear, and to let the unseen cameras do their work. When the evidence surfaces, it won't need your drama to validate it. It will stand on its own. And when it does, those who once plotted in secret will face the daylight they thought they'd avoided. And if you're wondering why it takes so long, that's the point. The process ripens like fruit. If the universe exposed them too early, it wouldn't be enough. It waits until the truth is complete, until the pattern is unmistakable. Then it reveals everything at once in a way that leaves no room for plausible deniability. So stand firm, chosen one. Rest in this: their secrets are not safe, their deleted messages are not gone. The invisible cameras of the universe have been filming every scene, and the day of disclosure is approaching. When it happens, you'll see loyalties flipped, devices seized, stories unspooled, and the world will finally read the file they wrote with their own hands. Keep your peace. Keep your faith. The cameras don't look away, and justice, when it comes, will be as persistent and unstoppable as the light itself. Chosen one, hear this truth clearly. Every deal made in darkness is nothing more than a receipt for destruction. They thought their secret alliances, their whispered contracts, their backroom handshakes would give them power. They believed that if no one saw it, if no one knew, then it didn't count. But the universe counts everything, and those very agreements they thought secured their future have become the chains tightening around their own necks. It's like a gambler sitting at a rigged table. At first it feels like he's winning. The cards seem to fall in his favor, the dealer keeps smiling, and the chips stack higher and higher. But what he forgets is this: the house always wins. He may walk away with a pocket full for a moment, but the game is designed for collapse. And by the time he realizes it, he's already lost everything. That's what happens when people think they can buy power through corruption, manipulation, or shadow deals. They don't realize that the fine print always demands more than they bargained for. Look through history, and you'll see it over and over again. Corrupt kings, greedy leaders, secret societies, people who traded integrity for influence. They strutted across the stage for a season looking invincible, but their empires fell like sandcastles against the tide. Why? Because corruption has an expiration date. Lies have a shelf life. Darkness never provides loyalty, it only gives out loans, and the debt always comes due with interest. Let me ask you this: have you ever seen someone who seemed untouchable suddenly unravel overnight? That's not random. That's the bill arriving. That's the receipt being collected. For a while, their success looked real. For a while, their mask convinced people. But behind the scenes, the universe was keeping track. And when the moment came, everything they gained in secret started slipping through their fingers in public. And here's the most powerful part, chosen one. While they were signing contracts in darkness, you didn't need to sign a thing. You were already stamped with divine purpose, sealed, with a calling that no shadow could cancel. They tried to purchase what you were born with, and in doing so they signed their own destruction. Their deals became their downfall. Your authenticity became your shield. So don't envy them when it looks like they're winning in the dark. Don't get discouraged when corruption struts for a season. Remember, every secret handshake has a cost, every hidden vow has a consequence, and every shadow contract comes with fine print. They were never buying power, they were renting their own destruction. Chosen one, you don't have to play their game. The light has already secured your future. Their receipts are coming due, and when the debt collector arrives, no amount of bargaining will save them. What they thought was leverage has become liability, and what they thought was strength has turned into their undoing. Their contracts became their chains. Your purpose became your proof. And in the end, only one of those survives. Chosen one, I want you to remember something powerful today. The very faith they laughed, at the very prayers they rolled their eyes, at the very hope they mocked in you one day, they'll be begging for it themselves. They thought your faith made you weak, fragile, naive. They mistook your trust in something greater as foolishness. But in reality, that faith was your fortress, your anchor, your shield that kept you standing when everything else was falling apart. I've seen it happen time and time again. When life is calm, when people feel secure in their schemes, they mock belief. They laugh at prayer. They dismiss hope as a fairy tale. But when the storm hits, when the walls start caving in, when every door slams shut, suddenly those same people start whispering the very words they once ridiculed. They mocked you for carrying a canteen in the desert, but now parched and desperate, they're begging for a sip. Think about it. Why did your faith bother them so much? Because faith is defiance. Faith is power they can't measure or control. Every time you believed it reminded them of what they lacked. Every time you prayed, it exposed the emptiness of their schemes. Your trust was a mirror showing them their own insecurity. And instead of humbling themselves, they mocked what they couldn't understand. But here's the truth. Studies on resilience prove what the Word has always declared. Those who hold on to belief, whether in purpose, destiny, or a higher order, are far more likely to survive trauma, rebuild stronger, and rise higher. That's you, chosen one. Your faith didn't just keep you afloat. It turned storms into training grounds. It refined you. It strengthened you. It proved you were unshakable. And now look at the reversal. The same mouths that mocked your prayers are whispering their own. The same people who said faith doesn't work are searching for it in desperation. But here's the tragedy: they only ran to faith when their pride failed them. Pride had its moment, but now humility is being forced on them, not gently, but with collapse, with loss, with the undeniable weight of consequences pressing down. Chosen one, let this settle deep in your heart. Your faith was never foolish. It was your fortress. It was the covering that kept you alive while they plotted. And now, while they scramble for a lifeline, you're standing strong because you never let go of the one thing they despised most, your trust in something greater. So don't be ashamed of your faith. Don't water it down to make others comfortable, because one day the very ones who laughed at it will realize it was the only thing that could have saved them. And by then, the contrast will be undeniable. You stood because of your faith, while they fell because they mocked it. Chosen one, let me reveal something deep to you. When your enemies couldn't win with lies, gossip, or manipulation, they reached for darker weapons. They went into places they didn't even understand. They whispered your name on altars that weren't theirs to touch. They sought out rituals, curses, and voices from shadows, thinking that somehow they could cage you. But what they didn't realize is this: the battlefield was never theirs. It was never under their control. They walked into a war they couldn't win. Picture a child sneaking into a chemistry lab, mixing dangerous chemicals without knowledge or wisdom. At first there's smoke, maybe sparks. It looks dramatic. But in the end, the real explosion doesn't consume the room, it consumes the child who stirred it. That's exactly what happened with your enemies. They thought the shadows they called on would obey them, but darkness doesn't serve, it consumes. They didn't summon power, they summoned destruction, and the first ones it devoured were the ones who lit the match. You may ask, but why did it feel like their weapons were working for a while? Why did the heaviness, confusion, or fear press on me? Because even storms can shake the house for a moment. Even shadows can stretch long when the sun begins to set. But storms pass, shadows scatter, and when the true owner of the battlefield steps in, every dark weapon loses its aim. You weren't standing there uncovered, chosen one. You were sealed, protected, and marked long before their envy ever formed. That's why every curse, every ritual, every whispered hex failed to erase you. And here's what history shows us. Those who borrow power from shadows always pay the steepest price. Ancient rulers who bowed to darkness, secret societies that swore allegiance to corruption, even modern manipulators who trafficked in spiritual fraud, all of them ended up collapsing under the very forces they thought would protect them. Because darkness doesn't do loyalty, it does loans. And the debt always comes due with interest. Look around at their lives now. Their health is shaking, their minds are restless, their alliances are fracturing, their finances are drying up. The same forces they paid to destroy you are now devouring them from the inside out. That's not coincidence, that's the consequence. That's divine justice at work. So let me ask you, chosen one, do you see why you're still standing? Do you see why no weapon formed against you could prosper? Because the battlefield was never theirs to claim. It was always governed by higher laws they couldn't rewrite. Their altars are shattered. Their curses are boomeranging back into their own hands. They thought they stepped onto the field to win, but the truth is, they only stepped into their own defeat. Chosen one, lift your head. You don't need to fear the dark weapons of envy or jealousy. Light always wins. And the very shadows that tried to swallow you whole are now the shadows that confirm your covering. You are protected, you are chosen, and their destruction is the evidence. Chosen one, there's a moment in every story like this when the plot completes its circle. The very hands that dug the hole for you become the hands that are cuffed. Listen close, because this is not revenge talk. It's the simple principle of cause and consequence played out in real time. Every scheme, every planted rumor, every forged document, those actions leave a trail. And trails become evidence. Evidence becomes cases. Cases bring consequences. Think about how investigations actually work. It's rarely a dramatic single gotcha scene like on TV. It's small things added up: fingerprints on a thrown-away envelope, a text message that didn't fully delete a witness who suddenly remembers the truth when pressure mounts. People who plot in shadows often believe they can cover every step, but the world has systems, legal, social, institutional, that exist to catch patterns. Paper trails, digital footprints, recorded conversations, financial records. These are the breadcrumbs that turn suspicion into proof. Imagine the person who constructed an elaborate frame against you. They planted evidence, coached witnesses, and staged scenes. For a season it might look like their plan worked, but once investigators start to look, patterns emerge. The coached stories don't line up. Signatures on documents don't match. The same phone number appears in multiple suspicious places. Little inconsistencies that seemed insignificant at first suddenly form a mosaic of intent, and that mosaic points right back to them. Let me be clear, I'm not promising instant justice, and I'm not saying every hurt will be resolved in a courtroom, but what we can trust is that earthly systems, law enforcement, courts, media scrutiny often move when the evidence is sufficient. We've seen corrupt schemes unravel because the evidence became impossible to ignore. Allies begin to change their stories. Forensic details surface. Records that were thought destroyed are recovered. The setup turns into the prosecution's strongest exhibit. And here's the spiritual dimension you need to hold: divine justice and human justice are not mutually exclusive. The universe doesn't work against the wheels that bring accountability. It often primes them. Your endurance, your integrity, your refusal to play their game becomes part of the record. When you don't retaliate, you let truth breathe. and investigators gather the facts without your noise, complicating the picture. The quieter you stay, the clearer the evidence becomes. Ask yourself, who will want to stand with someone whose story keeps changing? Who will risk their reputation on a lie? Pressure reveals the truth. Under pressure, fingerprints, receipts, and witnesses begin to point to the same conclusion. That's when handcuffs appear not as poetic metaphor only, but as a literal outcome when justice systems do their work. Courtrooms, public exposure, reputational fallout. These are the structures that translate moral consequence into real-world accountability. So, rest, chosen one. You didn't have to dig for your own vindication. You didn't have to become entangled in the traps they set. Your integrity helped preserve the evidence that would one day expose theirs. And when that day comes, it won't be theatrics that finish the story, it will be facts. The hands that tried to bury you will be proven guilty by the very marks they left behind. Keep your head high, keep your heart pure. Let the systems do their work and let the truth walk in the courtroom of the world. Justice is showing up, sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully, but it is showing up. Chosen one. I want you to see something that will completely change the way you look at every battle you faced. Every attack against you became the very material God used to build your rise. Every stone they threw was not wasted. Every pit they dug to bury you became a platform to lift you higher. What they designed as subtraction turned into multiplication. What they intended as chains became proof of your freedom. Picture this: an enemy throws bricks at you, one after another, hoping to break you. At first it stings, at first it feels unfair, but then something shifts. You realize those same bricks can be stacked layer upon layer until they form a staircase. The very tools meant for your destruction became the tools of your elevation. That's your story. Their cruelty became your construction. Their malice became your material. Psychologists call this phenomenon post-traumatic growth. It's when people don't just survive hardship, they emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. And isn't that exactly what happened to you? Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every slander deepened your resolve. Every setback trained you to stand taller than before. You didn't just endure, you evolved. Their hatred was your training ground. Their traps became your testimony. Let me ask you, if you had never faced their opposition, would your strength be this sharp? Would your endurance be this deep? Sometimes the universe allows resistance not to destroy you, but to reveal you. Diamonds are only formed under pressure. Gold is only purified in fire. And your destiny, chosen one, was shaped in the very storms that were sent to break you. Here's the irony that keeps your enemies awake at night: their own attacks crowned you. The more they fought you, the more evidence they created of your significance. If you were truly irrelevant, why invest so much energy trying to erase you? The fact that they fought so hard is proof of how powerful your mission really. Island. And now their downfall is the confirmation. Their collapse is the evidence that justice is alive and working. So stand tall. Don't waste time mourning the battles they were never wasted. Those pits, those stones, those storms, they became the raw materials of your destiny. You are stronger because of them, not in spite of them. And today your very rise is the loudest testimony that justice cannot be silenced. Chosen one, let this truth sink in. They didn't just fail to stop you, they helped build you. Every attack was a receipt that proved you were unstoppable. And your elevation is not just your victory, it's their undoing. The universe flipped their evil into evidence, their malice into momentum, their hate into the very spotlight of your calling. Your rise is proof that destiny cannot be erased. Justice has already spoken, and you are living, breathing evidence of it. Chosen one, let's bring this all together. After everything we've uncovered, after every attack, every lie, every scheme, one truth stands unshaken. They could not take your life. They could not erase your dignity. They could not silence your purpose. Every weapon they formed has turned into evidence against them. Every trap they dug has become the testimony of their own downfall. What they thought would bury you became the soil for your rebirth. What they believed would erase you has only made your light impossible to ignore. So hear me, your silence was never a weakness. It was strategy. While they screamed, you stayed grounded. While they plotted, you trusted. And while they mocked, you stood firm in the fortress of your faith. That faith was never naive. It was your strongest shield. It preserved you when logic said you should have broken. It anchored you when storms tried to toss you away. And now that same faith has become the testimony of your resilience. This is not about revenge. This is not about you getting even. This is about balance being restored. The universe, the divine order, God himself, whatever name you choose, has a way of ensuring no injustice lasts forever. Every system of corruption collapses under its own weight. Every arrogant scheme eventually exposes itself. This is what you are witnessing now, not petty vengeance, but cosmic justice. Not bitterness, but balance. And here's the invitation: recognize who you are. You are not a victim of their schemes. You are the evidence that truth cannot be silenced. You are the mirror that exposed their lies. You are the living testimony that destiny cannot be erased. The very fact that you are still standing, still breathing, still rising, proves that you were chosen to endure and to shine. Your story is not ending in their pit. It is beginning in your purpose. So today I invite you to make this moment personal. Type 77 or 777 inches the comments as a declaration of your victory. Not just as a symbol, but as a statement: I survived. I endured. I am chosen. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to be reminded that justice is real and that no weapon formed against them will prosper for long. And above all, hold this truth in your heart. You were never written in pencil. You were carved in permanence. You are not expendable. You are essential. Your life is proof that divine justice is alive and active. Chosen one, walk forward knowing the balance has been restored. Justice is not coming, it's already here. And your rise is the undeniable evidence.